What a shameful cover-up, and that too by India's DGCA, ladies and gentlemen, as we look at the crash report of AI-171. A fleeting mention was made of an FAA advisory in 2018. Now, what did the AAIB AI-171 crash report, that is, the Ahmedabad Boeing Dreamliner crash report, what did it say? It blamed a switch that went from run to cutoff, the fuel switch that went from run to cutoff, and it tried to blame the entire tragedy around that switch. But did you know, in 2018, there was a warning given by the FAA. It was an advisory. It was in the form of an advisory. And here I have it in my hand and on your screens right now. What did this advisory say in 2018? Listen to the words carefully to see how we knew all along as a country. DGCA knew this and did nothing. In 2018, this advisory specifically mentioned Boeing company model 717 to 200 planes, model 737-700 and model 787, 8, 9 and 10 aeroplanes. 787-8 Dreamliner specifically was mentioned. Now, what did this advisory tell? It asked operators and informed them that the fuel control switches were installed with the locking feature disengaged. It mentioned that the fuel control switches are installed on the control stand in the flight deck used by the pilot to supply or cut off fuel engines. It mentioned the fuel control switch has a locking feature to prevent inadvertent operation that could result in unintended switch movement between the fuel supply and fuel cutoff positions. It also mentioned in order to move the switch from one position to the other under the condition where the locking feature is engaged, it is necessary for the pilot to lift the switch up while transitioning to the switch position. If the locking feature is disengaged, the switch can be moved between the two positions without lifting the switch during transition, and the switch would be exposed to the potential of inadvertent operation. Inadvertent operation of the switch could result in an unintended consequence such as in-flight engine shutdown. I've shown you the full paragraph. Now, what has happened today and what is the breaking news update? Republic TV sends an email to DGCA on Monday at 12:30 p.m. And we point out that 2 days back, the AAIB in its initial preliminary report on AI-17 crash has mentioned the FAA advisory. We asked them, what did India's DGCA do about that advisory? Believe it or not, we wrote a mail to them at 12:30. At 6 p.m., the DGCA puts out an order. After 2018 December, they put out an order in 2025, 7 years later. And 7 hours after, Republic wrote to them, asking them what they did. DGCA, in perhaps an attempt to cover up, we don't know, but we've exposed the lapse. 7 hours after we wrote to them, and 7 to 8 years after the FAA first warned the Boeing 787 series of a possible collapse of the switch from run to cutoff, DGCA today has put out a directive. And ladies and gentlemen, today, based on the FAA directive of 2018, they're asking airline operators to do mandatory checks within 1 week. Within 1 week for something that was told to them in 2018. 7 years they have waited, and in 7 days they want all airlines to comply. And do you know what they have said in today's order? I have it in my hand, and I'm going to read it out, and you can see it on your screens right now. Subject: compliance with SAIB engine fuel and control for all affected aircraft registered in India. And ironically, the first line says the FAA issued a special airworthiness information bulletin number NM1833 dated 17 December 2018 regarding potential for disengagement of the fuel control switch locking feature on Boeing company models, and they mention all the models. And what do they say? DGCA issues mandatory modifications for aircraft engines components registered in India based on airworthiness directives issued by state of design/manufacture. And they also say, in view of the above, all airline operators of the affected aircraft are hereby advised to complete the inspection required under SAIB number NM1833 dated 17 December 2018, no later than 21st July 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, just think about it. It's not as if India's airline operators like Air India and the DGCA didn't know about a potential disengagement of the fuel control switch. They knew it. They were warned in 2018, December 17th, 2018, but they waited for 7 years. Today, 1 month after the crash, they have issued a DGCA advisory asking all airline operators to mandatorily check what the FAA warned for about 7 years back. Could we have prevented the AI-171 Ahmedabad crash if the DGCA had woken up 7 years earlier? Just think about it.